And people are starting to join. Hello, Peggy. Hello, Tad. You're the first ones in. Great to see you. Well, thank you to everybody who signed up to today's fantastic session on the circular economy. This is a really important topic, and I am absolutely delighted that that this fantastic panel are together, and I'll hand you over for everybody to be introduced in a second. But I will say what I always say, and I'm getting bored of saying it, which is, it would be so much nicer if we were all in a conference room in a fantastic hotel, face-to-face and in person, where we could then have a really good discussion about this afterwards over a drink in the bar. But we're not. So we are in Zoom, which is the next best thing. We have 120 people signed up for today, which is great. As you all know, we probably get half of those come in, and then everybody is sent the link to the recording when it's edited who signed up, and then we make it public to everybody else in Europe and on social media a week or so after that. If at any point you have a question or a comment that you would like to make, please use the chat box. At the bottom of the screen, you can see the little chat icon. Just click on that. It'll open the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. Just remember when you're in there to swap the default from host and panelists to everyone, because it's a quirk of Zoom's that it opens up with host and panelists. So if you put a question in and it's really relevant, only us will see it unless you change it to everyone. So annoying quirk of Zoom, but if you could do that, that'd be great. We've got a really fantastic agenda to get through this afternoon. So I will, without further ado, I'm going to hand you to Susan Ginsberg, my fantastic colleague. It's lovely to see you, Susan. Thank you so much, Susan and Paul, for putting this together. And thank you to John and Sabine for being here. I will shut up until such time as I'm needed technically. So Susan, over to you.
First, thank you, Dom, and thank you so much to Euro for hosting this very important session. I'm thrilled to be here today with my esteemed colleagues, John Holm from PYXERA Global, Sabine Wichmann at SAP, and Paul Barnes at Inspire Global Mobility Consulting. Sustainability is a complex topic, and global mobility has a responsibility to get involved, to take action, and to impact change. So today, what will we learn? You're going to gain a practical understanding of what the circular economy is and its relevance to you and your organization. You'll hear insights from case studies that you can use to inform your sustainability strategy. You're going to learn how to proactively manage your internal and external value chain for tangible business and social impact. You'll acquire clear insights into the critical role that technology plays in the transition to a circular economy. And you'll also obtain a keen understanding and gain best-in-class examples of new circular technology business models that are being innovated. We're going to leave about 15 minutes for Q&A at the end of our discussion. So I ask, as Dom said, is please type your questions into the chat, and we will address them at the end. And hello to everybody. I see lots of greetings coming through. And again, thank you so much for being here. We're going to start with some brief introductions, and then fuller introductions you can find on Euro's website. So over to you, John.
Well, thank you, Susan. Thank you, Dom, and thank you, Paul, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is John Holm. As Susan mentioned, I'm Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at PYXERA Global, a 501c3 nonprofit. Spent most of my life in the private sector with 10 years in Europe and Hungary and Romania, helping companies like Starbucks and Subway and IKEA make market entry in Central Eastern Europe. And really fell in love with that epicenter, the crossroads between the public, private, and social sector space. In my day job, I spent about 2 years of my life lately focusing on the circular economy transition, focusing essentially on helping companies understand the economic and social opportunity of aligning their value chain into a circular transition.
Thank you, John. Truly a circular economy expert. Over to you, Sabine.
Yes, also a warm welcome from my side, and thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this webinar. My name is Sabine Wichmann. I'm from SAP. I'm working since 7 years on innovation and sustainability topics at SAP. And one of the topics that I'm running is also our partnerships and networks that we see are definitely one of the top priorities that companies need to think about when also looking at circular economy and sustainability, right? Because we see that companies individually or alone can't achieve all these global goals and aspirations, right? And myself, I'm a strong believer in innovation, and I definitely see that everything that we are discussing here and looking for these new strategies and embedding sustainability in the processes, that this is a big opportunity also for innovation and looking for new ways of doing things, right? So I think we will share some great examples later on, and again, happy to be here.
So thrilled to have you here with us, John and Sabine, and I know we're going to learn a lot from you today. Over to you, Paul, and you truly are the champion in the global mobility industry for really bringing sustainability and the circular economy to our attention. And really, I want to say thank you to you for leading this change in the industry.
Well, thank you, Susan, and thank you for the collaboration to put this together. And it was actually Susan that first introduced me to John and opened my eyes to circularity. And so thank you for the collaboration to put this on. John, Sabine for joining, Dom for hosting this, because we do believe this is an industry first to discuss the circular economy in a meaningful way. So I've been in the industry for 30 years. I'm an independent consultant. One of my primary aims is to drive networking and collaboration across the whole global mobility industry, from in-house, out-house, across all of the services, and just really help people start their journeys, evolve their journeys, and make their journeys meaningful. So really looking forward to this today.
Excellent. What a great panel, and a global panel as well. So this is, again, an international discussion. So first over to you, John. What is the circular economy, and how does it matter? Why does it matter?
Well, it's a really good question. It's a loaded question, actually, Susan, but I think what we can do is try to simplify it as much as possible to find some value in that. And so I'm going to share here, bear with me. Here's my tech skills. I got some brief slides to share. Can you see the screen? Can you see the slides? Yes, thank you, Dom, for the thumbs up. I really appreciate that encouragement. So for context, I just want to highlight a little bit of our unique vantage point to actually answer that question. You know, PYXERA Global has this really unique position where we work with aligning the public, private, and social sector together. And what that means is that we see different vantage points across the globe, whether we're in Asia, and I see Rwanda represented here in the continent of Africa. You know, it's always, we really have the fortunate ability to look at the global pace and trends in the space and really try to find solutions through the private sector lens. On that note, this is just a couple of the clients and companies that we work with. For example, Ellen MacArthur Foundation is a great resource for you to really try to find out more information on the circular economy. I highly recommend you check it out if you need some more information, as well as Metabolic, who really has an understanding of the science of sustainability. It's one of our key partners. I think also I want to highlight that this term circular economy is becoming critical in the market space in the private sector, as you see companies like NL, FedEx, Repley listed there, as well as John Elkington, the guy who created Triple Bottom Line, also a partner on Green Swan creation and looking at it as a transition. So the question is, why is this relevant? So what I want to do is take a second and take a snapshot, throw out buzzwords. Let's remove sustainability, circular economy, conscious capitalism, shared value creation, all this jargon that's in the space right now, and just focus a little bit on what's happening right now in the world. If you look at it right now, sustainability from that point of view, sustainability meaning the sustainable of our planet and the force of our planet, we have really three issues right now that the world has to deal with on a constant, consistent basis, with private sector having to either look at solving these problems through mitigating the risk of these three areas I'm going to mention, or trying to identify new business opportunities to address these issues. The first issue we want to talk about is the proliferation of waste streams across the world. Right now, many of you may have seen that the volume of plastic will be more than the volume of fish in the ocean by 2050. Now, estimates are saying that could be potentially 2040. So we have a huge waste issue across the globe. Two, agriculture. Topsoil, the way it's proceeding right now, topsoil in 40 to 50 years will run out, meaning 90% of the topsoil will be gone, which means we can't grow fruits and vegetables. That's real, that's science. And last but not least, and I think where mobility really ties into this, is our climate. Everybody knows what happened in Scotland last week. I'm not going to reiterate COP26, but the 1.5 degrees Celsius is really world. It's not real. It's not that climate change is happening or coming. It's already here. We're already seeing climate refugees. So the question is, with those three issues, what can we do to address this? And so the way that we look at as an organization of an opportunity to address this is through what's called a circular economy. And that's a way to address all of these issues across the board. And so when you look at the circular economy and say, what is a circular economy? I think it makes sense to just go back a second and look at our current economic platform, the current take, make, waste, linear platform, where consumption is key to profitability. Consume, consume, consume. It's not really necessarily why you're consuming something, it's just consume it for the sake of consuming. With people or consumers being the ones that need to force change, not the other way around. So when you look at the current economic platform, those three issues I mentioned to you earlier are directly contributing to the waste streams, are directly contributing to the agriculture problems we're having, and as well as the climate. So what the circular economy is addresses that economic platform. And this is how it does it. And I think the best way to explain, and I'm just going to get through here for a second, is looking at the three pillars. And again, this is the Ellen MacArthur Foundation of how they describe it, which I think is a great framework. One, the first pillar, look at designing out waste and pollution from inception. What that means is before a product is taken to market, how can you look at designing out waste and pollution from the very beginning, the economic incentive of that? So an example here that we talk about is Uhu. If everybody heard of Uhu, this is a digestible organic packet, which you can digest, you can drink, you can take in, and it's 100% organic, healthy, and does not go into your system in a negative way. It's actually very helpful. This was actually test launched the London Marathon. They're looking to scaling this right now. But again, question is, why do you even need plastic bottles? I mean, if you look at the proliferation of plastic bottles coming to, say, some water and water bottles, that was in the early 90s when it started coming in. Again, is it a market need or a want? This addresses that. Some innovations here, keep products in use. So this is something too, when you look at the concept of planned obsolescence, if you, for example, look at light bulbs were designed to burn out at 1,000 watts back in the day. The question is, how can you transition to look at keeping products in use longer and incentivize, for example, light bulbs to stay in service longer and be used to their maximum utility? So when you look at keep products in use, one company that has really kind of a thing is, I think anybody heard about Patagonia. I say that not in jest, but the fact that it's so expensive, but looking at how you can look at repairing your goods now. And this is something that's coming into play right now. One thing I want to bring out on repair as a radical act, it's really not. If you look out through the world, many communities use reuse as a way of just living. So this is nothing new. The thing here, though, is Patagonia is making it sexy to be new. And that is a business case of how Patagonia monetizes reuse, which is, okay, a good thing to its stakeholders and also potentially for the world. The last thing here, which is really key, is regenerate natural systems. So you're going to say, what does that mean? So when you look at regenerating natural systems, the way that circular economy looks at it is that everything is connected in one ecosystem. When you plant a tree, how do you make that tree and the water going into it the best possible ingredients? And then you take that and stretch it out to have a really, really good organic or rich soil that comes out of it that connects to one another. So when you look at regenerating natural systems, it's not looking at the economic opportunity per se, but it's looking at many times companies' supply chains. So how does a company look at their supply chain as a competitive advantage where they're growing their food, the farmers procuring it to make sure that soil health is great, much better, or even when you're looking at natural systems, water, right? So you see a lot of on the rise now, especially in Africa, kelp farms looking at new organics in the water and then trying to protect that water and coral around it. The last thing I want to say about what is the circular economy is that a lot of this is I'm going to throw back at you folks to give you kind of a roadmap. When you think of what it looks like for the circular economy space, don't try to overcomplicate it. Look at it in really 4 key ways. When you look at your company or your organization yourself, as Susan mentioned to you earlier, try to find a way to look at the circular economy as a way to save money. Look at it as a way to really innovate a new program or new idea. And so here's 4 paths you can do that. One is operations. Where can you save money? Where can you cut costs? Or where can you take an existing product or a waste stream and actually potentially look at it as a profit opportunity? Products and services, that's redesigning or looking at your products and services better. In the mobility industry, I want to highlight the role of Michelin. where they developed a tire as a service model, where instead of where they're actually charging the client based on how many miles are worn on the tread, instead of just saying, here's your set of new tires. So that's a new innovation model that Michelin's doing to capture market share. Culture and organization. That's really engaging your employees on your circular vision and really at the nexus of companies really being authentic about circular economy engagement. And the last is ecosystem. Ecosystem is understanding policy, and it's understanding really your partnerships. Circular economy is not linear, it's circular, and that means understanding your value chain that way. And the one thing I'll say before I hand over on the circular economy space, Europe is in a wonderful position because you have the Green Deal. And the Green Deal actually has a lot of policies that really incentivize, well, and tax a circular economy transition. I encourage you to look for documentation on that can guide you on which incentives are available and also which taxes can be applied to you potentially as well. So hopefully that was helpful, and I hand it over. So let me just give it back.
So John, that was extremely helpful and a great, very clear way for those of us who are not circular economy experts like you and Sabine, is to understand the transition from a linear economy to a circular economy. So now over to you, Sabine. Sabine, can you briefly tell us about SAP's role in the circular economy and share some of the key innovations that you're invested in?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Suzanne. Just a question, would Paul, would you pull up the slides?
Dom's going to pull those up for you.
Yeah, awesome. Perfect. So I'll just start already talking. So what is SAP? I mean, I think probably many of the participants potentially know what are we doing as a company. So SAP is probably most known for the enterprise resource planning, right? And when we talk about resource planning, we talk about all the different materials, products, solutions that we exchange in our global ecosystem, right? That we not only exchange, we produce, we plan for them, we sell them, right? So if you think about it, there are so many transactions that are assigned to products, right? And actually at SAP, we say that 77% of the world's transactions run through the SAP systems. So we at SAP, of course, see that it's our kind of top priority to enable all of the different solutions which our customers across 25 industries use to enable those systems with sustainability and circular economy principles. Maybe I don't yet see the slide, but let me see.
Yeah, Dom, are you able to bring the slides up? Here we go.
Perfect. Excellent. Exactly. Perfect. This is it. So I wanted to kind of come back that actually you see here a pyramid, right? And this is kind of the SAP's view on how we see to embed the sustainability and also circular economy principles into our solutions. So we already actually look at the top of the pyramid and we see that it is really embedded into our purpose. Because our purpose as SAP is to help the world run better and improve people's lives. And we really see that we have the power also to do that, because of what I mentioned, that if you think about any product that you buy today, it's probably has had transitions around it, which has been logistically moved around the world, or it has been sold, right? Some financial transactions, and these transactions typically are going through SAP systems. So this is really embedded in our core purpose, right? And if you look in the middle, we have here also put that we as SAP see ourselves as an enabler and as well as exemplar. Enabler means, again, that we provide systems, for example, the financial systems, where we are looking also how to embed new measurements, and that you can really not only look at the financial value and the costs of goods, for example, but for example, also at the carbon footprint of producing a certain product, so that you can make more conscious decisions. For example, when you decide really from which suppliers will you buy the raw materials, or from which potentially factories would you produce such goods, right? So this is more the enabler part. The exemplar part is, of course, we are a big company, over 100,000 employees also on our side. And we see that we can also definitely take action within our company and create strategies how to eliminate waste. And one example is we have also within all our, let's say, operations or events, we have eliminated single-use plastics. Of course, we are also, for example, for our data centers. So our business runs around data, right? And we provide also data centers. It's all on renewable energies. So these are just two examples, right? How we as a company also really commit to sustainability and circular economy kind of principles. And if you look on the bottom in the green, we have actually 4 kind of priorities and programs defined. So these are really our focus areas. And I actually like really much how, John, you were also talking about these topics, right? Also the core challenge. And I think this really well kind of reflects also that these programs and priorities should also enable working on these kind of challenges and solving for these challenges that actually you introduced, right? So if you look on the left side, we called the program within SAP called Climate 21. It's all about reducing the carbon footprint across all the logistics operations, across the products, across the factories, and across all scopes, right? So we are innovating massively on that area. In the middle, we have the topic around circular economy, actually also the focus area of today, right? How can we eliminate waste? And actually there, I will also show you in the next slide later in a second, what are really the topics that we see there, right? And also other topics like equality for all, which means how can you also enable the right measures to make sure that you have equality on different areas, right? Not only gender, but we are really collaborating also with a lot of organizations. What are the right measures to be put in place to actually even start measuring these things, right? Those are core topics that we are working on in our programs. And on the bottom, you see also the holistic sustainability steering and reporting. So this is all about what I mentioned, I think already a few times, but really measurement. We see that, of course, data can provide new insights. And this is also the core business of SAP, right? Generating data, providing transparency, getting the data out of different processes that are being run today and making it more transparent so that new or better decisions, more sustainable decisions can be made. And this is all kind of fitting under that initiative, sustainability steering and reporting, where we look again also at different standards that are there today already, like GRI, SASB, but there are many standards that are only appearing today because I think we all know that also there have been gaps in how do we measure the kind of new way of economy, right? So these are kind of the top priorities what we are working on. Yes, and maybe we can switch one more slide, and then I will just kind of finish up specifically on the circular economy topic. So how do we see it? We saw, I think, John, from you a perfect introduction, right? From the big high level, also what are the core challenges, the core topics, right? And how do we see it as SAP? So here we have also kind of, if you look from the right side, where we start with the core processes, right? And I think we have the one-on-one overlap where you also, John, mentioned kind of you start from the design, right? So how can you embed the principles in the design phase when you already design for products, so that at the end of the life cycle of the product, it's easy to either remanufacture it or reuse it or recycle it, right? These decisions, which materials you use and how you actually build it up, how modular, so that you can take it actually apart, is already happening at that stage one. Because I think at the moment we have a lot of challenges, I guess, even with the plastics, right? Because the plastics that was designed potentially several years ago, it was designed not to be recycled, right? So there are a lot of single-use plastics, and that's the challenge there, right? So for this process step one, we also look at the solutions, technical solutions. How can we give the engineers the technical solutions to help to make these design for circularity decisions, right? If we go into the next phase, kind of enabling sustainable commerce or re-commerce, there we're looking at kind of innovations also in the area of marketplaces, meaning that if the one example maybe of automotive industry where I'm working closely with different customers, we're looking at ways how to bring, for example, secondary materials into a marketplace and actually connect that demand for the secondary material for new production with the supply, with a lot of material, either it's maybe electric vehicle batteries or other parts that could be actually reused, right? Or even for new applications, right? So we're looking at these kind of marketplace concepts. And if we go further in the process, so optimizing the resource use, so it's all about really, yes, the production phase, but also kind of estimating or assessing the material impacts. This also may be an interesting kind of topic here. We see also on the slide, there is a new regulation around extended producer responsibility, right? And SAP has been also collaborating with a lot of partners from the consumer products industries. And we actually just released a new solution called Responsible Design and Production. And the solution should help to kind of manage all these new regulations around extended producer responsibility and really to kind of evaluate the material impact on your profit actually, right? Because if you understand what are the regulations, what are the taxes you might need to pay also by using different materials, you can actually look at ways how to optimize the profitability also. And maybe if we move to the left side, so also a topic mentioned by John, again, can only add on that. We see that also technology, of course, here also plays a role when we talk about new business models, like, again, not only selling the product, but really, can we sell a service or can we sell like a usage, right? That performance is the new kind of way also. So also there we're looking at different initiatives from our side. And then we go on the last kind of two topics. So managing take-backs, it's all about logistics, right? So I mentioned that, of course, in every kind of industry, logistics plays a very important role. And we see more and more that there is actually new processes even need to be set up to actually manage these potentially products or waste that are coming back, right? And there we see that it's today challenging, but because potentially even the infrastructure is not yet prepared for it. But we're looking also how can technology enable this, right? And the last, also but not least point, so the point 6, maintaining value and eliminating waste. So it's really also how do you make those decisions at the end of the life cycle? What is the best strategy to kind of reuse or recycle or remanufacture products or different materials, right? So how can we provide data? And we have as SAP also solutions, of course, with a lot of analytics capabilities that kind of analyzes different material impacts, different CO2 footprints, right? That you can make the best decisions. So this is basically the SAP's view on high level, right?
Well, Sabine, that was excellent and very, very helpful. And I really like how you describe SAP's mission here. You're an enabler. You empower others to take action, and you provide and you set examples. And your models that you shared today are so fascinating and I find very useful. They can be, we really invite our attendees today to look at these models and adapt them to your own organization. And it's so great how you kind of you codified everything in steps. And so again, our goal today is for you to have a number of aha moments and walk away with, okay, I can do this. And this is the roadmap I can create for my organization to impact change. Thank you very much. So next, a question for you, John. We talk a great deal about the circular economy and being truly systemic and the need to involve the public, private, and social sectors. Can you provide a bit more context on how PYXERA Global's role engages the private sector to deliver multi-sector partnerships and seize the competitive advantage?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think one thing that's great about having Sabine and SAP on the phone is that we're a close partner with them. And actually one thing that's unique is that any cities that we're working with on circularity, we bring SAP in. So I think, you know, when you're looking at, I think the first thing to look at when you're saying, how is to really look at where the private sector's entry point is. What we view when we look at a circular economy space is that without public, so the city or government putting in the right incentives or taxes or the sticks, the economy cannot transition to the state we need it to. So you have to engage public. Sabine mentioned, for example, EPR, extended producer responsibility. A lot of that's happening in the US. Europe already has a heads up, to be quite honest, on policy. And I think one thing you have to pay attention to is how policy affects the private sector's engagement on the circular economy space, and pay attention to that. So in some of our work, we work, for example, with the city of Cleveland, Ohio, with the government and with partners like SAP on how to actually find those right policy themes to put into place. Two, the circular economy, if you just focus on sustainability, is really missing out on the economic opportunity. So this is where the social comes in. You have to engage community members. I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Patagonia, a lot of the community members in cities who don't have a lot of resources already have a lot of this, a lot of the bare bone structures of reuse and reduce already because they have to survive. So what we do as an organization is we target those historically marginalized communities. For example, working in Alaska with Tribal Nation in Alaska and Montana. We're working with waste collectors in Ghana. We're working with Black and Brown communities in Cleveland. We want to use the circular economy as a way to bring in new customers, but also take some of their resources and actually have them become owners of this new transition. So there's the social. And then of course, private. If you really look at the landscape right now, private sector controls this theme. And if you just throw sticks at the private sector, they won't engage. So how do you get the private sector to go, wait a second, let's look at our competitors. You know, I think one thing when you have all these trends in the space I alluded to earlier, Susan, you get so overwhelmed. So if you look at, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals, how are the Sustainable Development Goals helping the business create a competitive advantage and make money? Yes, it's great to report out. Yes, it's great to say that we're making progress on a specific goal, but that's not skin in the game. How do you look though at the circular economy space and have a company going, well, wait a second, there's a lot of sticks coming our way, a lot of taxes coming our way. How do we get there and adapt first to not only avoid those sticks or to mitigate the risk, but actually differentiate ourselves in a positive way? So I mentioned to some folks earlier, Adidas has done this really well in the sporting goods industry. They got out about plastic shoes and ocean plastic shoes, partnering with Parley the Oceans, a nonprofit, and innovating new shoe technology. Now, if you look at the shoe industry, Nike, Puma, Adidas, Allbirds, all have those shoes. That's being smart. That's bringing the industry along with you. In the mobility industry, one client that we work with is FedEx. FedEx is really nimble on what they call sustainable reverse logistics. Now you're saying, what the hell does that mean? Well, when you look at reverse logistics, you're looking at FedEx's environmental footprint in the mobility space. So they know the environmental trade-offs, and there's moves they're already making on going to renewable energy, which is great, but that's not enough. What more can they do? So how can they look at helping social issues out with their ESG strategy? And so what we do as an organization is work on providing those leverage points in to help them do that. The last thing I'll say is that when you look at the private sector space, I mentioned earlier ecosystem. You look and listen to what Sabine said about partnerships and about what they're doing in the space. Leadership starts by stretching out and getting out of one's head, and I say corporate head, of looking at your business very like this. If you start stretching yourself out and look at opportunity for partnerships across the ecosystem, that's where the opportunity lies. I mentioned earlier Adidas with the partner Parley the Oceans. There's a group called Better World Fashion based in Denmark, where they procure all, they're a fashion company, they procure all their leather from the Red Cross for free. So my point is that if you really are nimble in understanding that intersection of the public, private, social sector space, you can really capture value. And the last thing I'll say is that just because this seems complex, I gave you the 4 spaces earlier: operations, saving costs, looking at governance. There's opportunity there. You just got to invest the time in it.
That's great, John. And, you know, what I take away from this is investing your time, your energy, your people in sustainability and the circular economy is good for business, and it helps create profitability. It can be done. So over to you, Sabine. SAP is a leader in bringing systemic technology solutions to the global marketplace. why, here's a why question, why did SAP view the circular economy as an important opportunity to invest in?
Yeah, thanks so much, Susan. I think there are a few also aspects to it. So I think we can start with the fact that, I mean, we definitely kind of serve our customers, right? And what I mentioned, that we know that more than 77% of all the world's transactions run through SAP systems. So of course that we also had seen from the customer requirements across 25 industries that sustainability and circular economy is the top priority for them, right? So we had to look at, okay, how can we really enable our core systems which support these daily processes, daily transactions, to support the customers to actually now start measuring, for example, sustainability and circular economy, right? So that is one really also guided by our customers. Secondly, we also see that there's a lot of regulation appearing in this area, where again, it's more maybe like a pull kind of mechanism where customers have to now comply with certain areas of regulation. And there always the question is, how can we measure it? How can we prove the certificates? How can we audit the things? Also there, of course, we are a technology company, and this is where we have really investigated also different solutions, and they are already existing from SAP. So these are kind of also topics that we saw that are important, and this brings also an opportunity for us, right, to guide actually our customers in this area. But also I think thirdly, because we see and we really believe that it is, we can only achieve it in kind of networked ecosystem. And this is also one of the SAP strategies. So how to achieve it, we work kind of in different industries to create these kind of networks, right? So one is, again, I mentioned, I think more the automotive industry, really starting from also electric mobility, right? But then going across the complete value chain and looking at how can we connect the recyclers with the car producers, and then even going back in the chain, actually, yes, there is the mining as the first stage, right? But the same also for other industries like the consumer products, for example, where we work with, let's say, farmers who really produce chocolate and other topics, or where they start farming, right? And then bringing these goods and value across the value chain. And of course, we see that there's a big opportunity if we can connect all of these players, and this is also SAP's kind of business to connect through data streams and enable kind of better insights also at the end of the life cycle. So I would say these are the major topics why we are also doing this. Yeah.
Very helpful, Sabine. And again, it speaks to SAP's and your mission of enabling the ecosystem, enabling the value chain, being catalyzing a value chain or multiple value chain, and being an example to others. So thank you for that. Now over to you, Paul. As a leader in the global mobility space, for really kind of bringing the important topic of circular economy and sustainability to the forefront, raising awareness, thanks to you and others, why do you believe that the circular economy is so powerful and important to the global mobility world?
Yeah, thanks, Susan, and thanks, Sabine, John, for what you've shared, because it really amplifies, what I feel. In the industry, every industry is struggling. There's a lot of dots to connect. Sabine has just shared, it's connecting those dots. It's the collaboration, and it's a mindset. And I just love the mindset. And today we can only cover so much and give people, give you all a view of this and an insight into this. And as John mentioned, look at Ellen MacArthur, look at the other sites, because look at the principles of it. So I think they're quite easy to apply in our daily lives, in our business decisions, when we're looking forwards. And anybody in the industry at the moment that is just planning to do the same thing, is their business model is just not, you're not going to survive. You've got to diversify, you've got to change the services, etc. But you need a mindset that you can believe in, you can embrace to actually go through this. I'll give you an example. One thing is product as a service. John gave two great examples. Philips with the lighting, not selling the bulbs, selling lighting essentially. Michelin not selling you a tire, but selling you the use of a tire and how much you use it. let's look at our industry. SAP did some great research recently, and apparently have calculated with others that only 9% of waste globally is basically properly recycled. You know, you could agree, disagree, but it's got to be around that when you look across the world. So that's pretty horrific. Household goods moving, what do? We have millions of pretty much one-used cartons. They may get used once or twice more, but pretty much one-used cartons used around the world every year for packing and moving people on the shipping side, the household goods moving side. So how about looking at product as a service rather than actually selling boxes for one-time use? How about reusable materials? Now, sounds very easy, but you know, it is a little bit complex. But so potentially manufacturing, designing a product, producing a product, it's got to be a flat pack box, potentially, because of warehouse space, maneuverability, a flat packs box that could be used 20, 30, 40 times. You know, what would the material that's going to be used for this to make it go that journey? How would you track it? You know, put a barcode on this. There's some great technology, track where this box is, because of course it will go through many different moving companies. So perhaps there's a network that join. You scan it in. When it's in your use, you scan it out when you use it on a move, and you get charged for that usage. So essentially you're not buying and boxes and never seeing them again. You're just paying for the short time that you have that box, you unpack it and you reuse it and ship it away. So when we're designing this in, as Sabine and John said, it's in the design phase. We've also got to think of who are the stakeholders, who's going to touch this, from the employee having it come into their home, where's the value for them, for global mobility that are paying for the shipping services, essentially, the packing crew, you know, where's the value for them, because potentially it may be more time consuming. You know, the household goods moving companies, where's the value for them? But this is where the circular economy, it runs through all of these steps when you're actually going through a process, and it will help you get to your end goal. And it's a recognized way. Also, it would build in the reverse logistics. How are you going to get that material back when it's finished with? You know, you're the extended producer, the EPR. You've got to actually get that back. You've got to show that you're actually disposed of it, or you found a second life for it, and then you disposed of it. You've got that responsibility. But also this feedback loops in the circular economy. So you're constantly getting feedback to make the design better, make the production of it, make the use of it better. It is so, as soon as you go into anything, it's circularity. And I just think it's just amazing. To me, it seems quite simple to engage with. Then it gets complex, but there's great value in there. So I've shared something contentious. A lot of people are probably saying reusable materials crazy, it's too complex. But the circular economy could help the industry actually get there and achieve this. So
absolutely. And Paul, that was really very useful. And the examples that you provided, as well as John and Sabine, you know, we in the global mobility industry, we move the world. So we have an accountability and a responsibility to impact change. It's also, with going through the past couple of years with a devastating pandemic for all of us, companies are looking for ways to grow their business, to gain the competitive advantage, as John mentioned earlier. Here's an opportunity from a business standpoint of view, a profitability perspective, to also impact your business, as well as doing what's good and important for the world. So last question over to you, Sabine, before we move into the Q&A. So Sabine, how critical is the role that technology plays in the transition to the global economy?
Thanks so much, Susan. I think Paul actually also gave already some great examples, right? And maybe I will try to make it also quite tangible. So if we look at ourselves as the kind of citizens, right, and we select products or we select services, right, it's also about, we were just discussing about traveling, making decisions, right? So what role does technology play? Well, to make a decision, you need to be able to compare things. You need to be able to also understand what is the measurement or impact of my decision, right? And that's where kind of technology technology, we see that it absolutely plays a very big role, because it has firstly that role of capturing and measuring things, right? Secondly, I think it has the role of really connecting and sharing this information. I think it's a very important topic in the transition to circular economy. I see that the insight that we can pass over from one chain or from one value chain player to the next, and also sharing this data, it's a very important topic, and that's where definitely technology plays a massive role. And I think also there's a saying that data is the new gold, right? So everything that you can really capture and measure and use in the right way, coming back to these decisions, can improve the business that you run, right? So also for us, again, as the kind of citizens, and if we buy a product, and actually, yes, for example, scanning a QR code, we would like to see how sustainable is this product, or even what will be done with the packaging afterwards, right? Will it be recycled, or hopefully it would not land in certain oceans, right? So actually, if you can capture this information, then of course in the back end, all of this is provided by technology, right? Which captures the processes, the logistic events, the different kind of data analysis, right? So this is absolutely, I think, also a big technology game to enable this transition to circular economy.
Great, Sabine, and thank you all. This has been really not only fascinating, but importantly, very useful. So now we want to spend the balance of our time to look at the Q&A. And so I'm going to turn this over to Dom, who will field questions.
Just fascinating. Thank you all so much. It's huge. I mean, this topic is huge, and we are attempting to address the larger issues that are brought up with this. I forgot to say at the beginning, Paul Barnes is the lead trainer on our newest MIM Plus module, Sustainability and Mobility, which will go live towards the end of the year. And thank you again to John, you've been part of that. And if you want to get a sneak peek at part of the content of that, there's an interview that Paul has done with John on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search Eura, and look for the big blue star, and you'll find our channel. And I think the first question that has come up, I'm going to direct to you, Paul, because one of the interviews that's on the YouTube channel is with Lara Shear at Planetmark, and this ties in. So thank you, Shakti Saran. Can we really achieve circular economy without a strong push from the consumer side? As a consumer, I would like access to a rating service that informs me of how sustainability friendly or unfriendly was the process of manufacturing the product through the entire supply chain, and not just at the point of usage. What options do I have that will allow me to make an informed choice? Does SAP's Climate 21 initiative achieve this? And I'll come to you in a minute, Sabine, if it's okay. Or is SAP willing to fund an initiative like this? So Paul, you've looked into the notion of certification for this kind of thing. Do you want to just expand on that a bit?
Yeah, and I love the question. Thank you, Shakti, because there's something in there for all of us, and certainly SAP are doing something fantastic on the tracing of materials on their token side, which Sabine and John can expand on. I think circularity, it brings everybody into this. So it's not just the consumer, it's the producer, it's the governmental side. It brings everybody into the equation, and it lets, wherever you are in this equation, it lets you see where the other stakeholders are, the influence that they can actually have on you, what you actually need to get out of each stakeholder. And the other thing it is, I talked about earlier, it's actually building in value. It's recognizing, for something to work, you've got to build in value for everybody. So if we're actually designing something or looking at a service in the mobility industry, we've actually got to look, where are the value for all of the people that this service is actually going to touch, down to the people actually delivering this service as well, because they're all stakeholders in this. So that's what I'd say on that side. But yeah, Sabine, John, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I would be happy to add, definitely, Paul. I can only agree with you. And I think from SAP perspective, I mean, yes, one is to, again, what I think mentioned, to capture these different events at the production, right? To really have the data to be even able to at the end of the day, when the product is produced and given to the consumers, to actually add this information. That's one. But I believe there was an interesting question or wording also in the question. It was about kind of, I think it was like a benchmarking service or somehow rating, right? But actually we have to then think even to give a rating, we also need, I think that was about collaboration topic, there needs to be kind of standards or agencies or collaborations which actually help the complete industry to evaluate and say, this is, let's say, the rating fitting in the A, this is the B and C is maybe not good and A is good, right? So it's more kind of going into this benchmarking and kind of, again, different measurement and standard things. And of course, there are a lot of technologies which support to let's say, audit the data, maybe that's one, but really then who is then the one who says this is good and this is bad from, let's say, rating, right? And there again, I only can add that definitely a partnerships with industry standard organizations or a lot of this different institutions is needed to actually agree on what is being then reported also, right?
Yeah, and I want to just highlight and come back here to answer a couple points on that question too, and to reiterate a little bit what Sabine said. I put in the chat a company called Dayrise, and Dayrise, what they do, is they actually just came out. It's through the company Metabolic. Metabolic is based on sustainability. It's science-based targets. So when you look at the score on Dayrise, it's an arbitrator, a third person, a scientist, trying to make these recommendations of what truly is sustainable and truly not sustainable. It's also a partner of SAP. I think that one thing that I want to highlight, though, is go back to the beginning of that question that Shakti asked, is, and I'm trying to pull it up, can we really achieve a circular economy without a strong push from the consumer side? The consumers won't be able to drive change. That's the reality. We've been saying for years, consumers need to push. Companies are the ones that are dictating the policy to change. They're the ones that pull the levers. Consumers will never be able to really have the voices to be able to push up. It's like saying in Chicago, you have a mother who has 3 kids, a single, has 2 jobs. Is it her job to really say, be more sustainable and recycle better? So I want to push back on that of the consumer saying it should drive the change. Consumers don't have the time, energy, resources nowadays to do that. The governments and the companies have the data to a degree to make those decisions and help us push forward. What we're trying to do this conversation, similar to what SAP does, and similar to the group NL Group. If anybody wants to check out another amazing group, NL, the utility company based in Italy, who actively says that fossil fuels need to go away. They want to push towards renewable energy everywhere. I think there's a lot of really good stuff happening, but unless we get companies to find a profit motive for the change, it's going to be hard. The other part I want to address here is a part by Lars Battle, and I just want to, it all connects. Does economic growth remain a goal in this paradigm, or does circular economy aim to achieve a steady state? I think the question, Lars and others, is how can you achieve a steady state while having economic growth happen? So Paul mentioned product as a service models, right? What can we do to have more signifies, to have more lighting as a service, to where you're incentivizing not planned obsolescence of a product, which was being done earlier, but instead efficiency at scale in Schiphol Airport, efficiency at scale in the city of San Francisco? How do you profit by a paradigm that has a steady state of consumption or even a reduced state? So those are all questions we're trying to figure out.
I was just going to add to that. So I think you there as well within the industry. It's that collaboration and diversification, and I think the winners in our industry are going to be those companies that move forwards. You know, they take what might seem as perhaps a little bit of a leap of faith. At the time, people may say, "Why are you doing that?" But people have a clear vision because they've used circularity to actually plan and see where the end goal is, and they let them understand how they can actually go on that journey.
Yeah, I mean,
great point, Paul. Great point, Paul. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Susan, please.
I was just going to say, great point, Paul. And what I would suggest is that those on the call in the global mobility industry is to reach out to others in the industry and create an ecosystem so that we are kind of better included in the corporate and business value chain. And by creating an ecosystem, we're better able to impact change. And to Sabine's point, you know, and I love what you said, is to be an enabler and to set an example. Sorry, John, over to you.
No, not at all. I'm fascinated by this, but from the point of view that, again, everything that you've touched on, in a way, I mean, one thing that came to mind for me was here in the UK, it was the government's responsibility to improve food labeling. That was one of the first big things that they did to actually inform the consumer about the levels of salt, the levels of fat, the levels of sugar in food. Is there some structure, do you see, John, Paul, Sabine, Susan, that, you know, it is going to be governments who are going to have to take the lead to say, yes, okay, day rise, that is amazing, but that should be standard across kind of most retailers?
I think that's where policy comes back into play. I think Europe has an advantage here. Europe has an advantage because the role of government has been much more dictated to be the role for the people. If you look at other parts around the world, and I think what's really frustrating is, again, while we're talking about economic opportunity in North America, in the United States, we're talking about Europe, which is great. A lot of the innovation happens in Latin America. It happens in Africa. And to be quite honest, a lot of the waste and consumption that comes from Europe and the United States directly goes to those folks on the shores. And they're having to deal with it right now. So I think to answer your question, I think it's complicated. I think circular economy is a local issue. You cannot just copy and paste and stamp a program. You have to really get into understanding what the local community needs are, what the local politics are, what the local incentives are, what the local culture is. If you look, for example, in Central and Eastern Europe, countries that have come from post-communism countries, they were reuse and holding on to resources much more near to them. If you transition that to United States, where it's just you're consuming as a child to throw stuff away. I think a lot of those cultures need to be brought out, and a lot of that behavior needs to be brought out in the consumers and what's going on there, and to try to find economic opportunity in each of those places like SAP does.
That ties in very neatly with a comment from Byron Ponsegura. Thank you. Dreaming, an international system of certification where compliance of circular economy criteria is measured and incorporated into a circular economy grading that is used, among other things, to influence a company's stock value. And like you say, it's a great, it's the future, but it's local. There are so many local variations. There are loads of things, and we are running out of time. So I'm just going to, Jesse, thank you so much. He made a point, Paul, which is in the chat box. But using your example of reusable boxes, how would that work on a global stage with multiple stakeholders, sometimes who are direct competitors, different levels of accountability, stretched margins? The challenges are endless.
Yeah, and I think this would take somebody potentially, hey, you know, Jesse, Feedy, you know, an organization set this up, put it out there in the network, the company borrows money to set the business up, and then it will actually make money and be profitable from this. But potentially the costs, so I'm the moving company, the cost of cardboard and materials is going through the roof. Potentially it's actually going to save me money. So I have to download the app, I have a little bit of technology, I have to retrain my crews how to use it, but I'm going to save some money. So there's value in it for me. The employees, they love it because they don't want to be connected with all these materials being thrown away. So it's going to take somebody to actually come up with something and do something, or potentially there's networks of companies get together, collaborate, and say, we'll set up our own company, we'll design this, or we'll collaborate with others, take a design, we'll produce this, and we'll circulate it, and we'll charge for it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, anything that's worthwhile doing is not simple, and you're right, there are challenges here, but it's doable, you know.
And thank you, Renee. She put exactly that point into the chat, saying, look at the concept of radical collaboration, and Renee is going to be part of a panel discussing that at our conference in Seville. I'm going to leave the last question to Enno Omen, who says, would you have an idea of what global mobility departments can do that apply a sustainable, I'm assuming, policy for the circular economy? Would you have examples that could be included into policy, like not having a new company car, but having a used car? Any thoughts?
I mean, I think there's one thing in the mobility industry that struck a chord here, at least in the United States, about 2 weeks ago. Hertz, the big rental car company, purchased 100,000 Teslas. That's seismic. because they're saying the energy cars are here. So I think what you might start seeing here eventually, because of greenhouse gas emissions, you're already seeing Europe way ahead of this game already, in Norway and other countries coming on down, is plugins and the mandating of electric vehicles coming into play from a policy perspective. I think that's on the horizon. As far as anything else, I think that's country specific, and I don't have any additional context. Sabine, any thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to add on you, because actually also as the exemplar, one of the examples from SAP is actually that we have announced also just recently that also our company fleet will be fully electric by 2025. So just exactly, John, as you mentioned, that was actually one of the topics that we have seen as also important for us as SAP. So definitely can only agree on that, yeah.
A lot of agreement, Sabine. This is always good.
This has been incredibly, not only fascinating, but very, very useful. Again, just if anybody would like to contact John, Sabine, Paul on LinkedIn, if you have further questions, or should you wish to consult with them, engage them, their expertise to create standards within an ecosystem, standards within your organization that will impact change, please feel free to find them on LinkedIn.
I will just say the final thank you to all of you. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you so much, Sabina. It's been a really fascinating. I feel like we have literally only scratched the top of a very large mountain in this, and we will definitely be coming back to it. Look out for the interviews that are going out now onto LinkedIn and onto our social media that Paul's been conducting with people such as John. They're really, really, really interesting, and they delve deeper into this topic. Thank you again to everybody for joining, and thank you so much to this brilliant panel. We will be returning to this topic, and if you're still available to bring your expertise, we would love to see you again. So thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to get this edited up as quickly as possible and onto the YouTube channel hopefully today. So please share it with anybody who needs to see it, and we will really look forward to seeing you all soon. And thank you again, everybody, for joining, and thank you so much to the panel.
Thank you, Dom. Thank you, Yura. Thank you to everyone.
Bye.